It's time to get clear, get heard, and get paid. And join us on our Soul Business Retreat. Attract your dream clients and income over 3 nights as we shape your passion into a business that makes a profit. Follow our 13 steps to reach 5K in 30 days in the beautiful Byron Bay. Whether you're starting, growing, or expanding your business, our all-inclusive 3-night retreat is the place for you. Check out the details in the show notes, and we hope to see you soon.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and today I have the beautiful Bonnie D'Arcangelo with us today. She is a clinical herbalist and holistic health consultant with a Master of Science in Herbal Medicine and is a certified aromatherapist with the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy. She is the co-founder of AEtherbal and the founder of Veusebeia, if I've said that wrong, you can correct me later, Phytotherapy Center. She's the herbal formulator of Herbal's topical products that blend science and herbal medicine to provide advanced delivery of medicinal herbs. She has helped hundreds of people to live pain-free lives and find relief for what ails them. Bonnie also seeks to give back to nature what she takes and is the founder and president of Michigan Protects, a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to plant and protect native Michigan medicinal plants. So a big welcome to the show, Bonnie, and thank you for that challenge of an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. You did really well with all the names.
I was just saying before we hit record that because of my speech pathologist background, it irks me when I can't say names properly. So I guess the biggest thing, Bonnie, is how did you... It's all right. We're just having a laugh here because, you know, this is just the thing. I was practicing saying her name before we even hit record. And now poor Bonnie's having a coughing fit, which you guys can't hear and see. And that's cool. So I guess, Bonnie...
I started coming down a little ill yesterday after being somewhere around a lot of people. And I was like, oh no, I got to be on camera tomorrow. I better not be coughing.
It's okay. They only can see the audio, so you can cough all you like, and I'll cover in the meantime. So, how did you feel pulled to start to work with herbs and track down your herbalism path and get back to nature? There's so many questions there, but just feel free to share what you feel pulled to.
Well, that was definitely a long journey. It started out in college, and it was during a very heated political time here in the U.S. And as a young kid, I was into a lot of radical ideas back at the time, and my boyfriend and I wanted to leave the city. We were living in Chicago and kind of move out to the country and live off of the land. And so we started by moving out to this permaculture institute out in the middle of nowhere, where I learned all kinds of things about growing food, growing fruits and vegetables and plants. And that's really kind of what got me started into herbal medicine. I was kind of into natural living and good health, but I didn't really know how to, even do the simplest things like treat a wound naturally. Or what do you do if you get stung by a bee? And so when I was at this permaculture institute, it would fascinate me because I'd get stung by a bee and this lady would go over to the grass and pull out this weed and chew it in her mouth and spit it on my arm. And, a few seconds later, the bee sting didn't hurt anymore. And I was like, well, what did you just put your spit on me? What did you do? So that's really what got me into being interested in herbal medicine and wanting to learn more about it. And I just kind of ended up being surrounded by people who were into that, and older women who kind of took me under their wing and taught me some things. And, life happens and you go through all these different stages. And I was very into my art and never considered herbal medicine as like a kind of, I guess you could call it career trajectory, until many, many years later. A number of people from like my women's group kept calling me their medicine woman. And I said, I'm not a medicine woman. I just happen to know a lot about herbs. And they were all like, no, you're our medicine woman. Like you're an encyclopedia of knowledge and wisdom about herbal medicine. And you really should start sharing it with people. And it kind of like was that light bulb moment that I started getting more into it and sharing it, and then realizing that I actually really didn't know that much, even if other people thought I did. And I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. And I'm starting in the fall my PhD.
Oh, well
I'm going
done.
to get a doctorate of science in integrative health and really continue to focus on how, in the age of the death of nutrition, we can start to bring nutrition back into our lives and doing that through plant medicine and other resources.
Yeah, and I guess the beautiful thing there is how you came to that journey. And I feel like it's often that one little thing that sparks us, right, to go to something that's so aligned. And I love that she spat on you with the herb in her mouth. I love it. Because people will be partly going, what is she talking about? But it just helps activate the herb, people. That's why she did that. It wasn't a rub in kind of thing.
Yeah, you had to like you have to crush the herb,
Yeah.
and so that's very like traditional kind of Native American medicine right there, and the herb was plantain.
Mm.
And I always love plantain because it has a lot of uses, but the Native Americans actually used to call it white man's foot because they said that it appeared everywhere the white man went, and it was not native. It was brought over during the colonial times, and so the Native Americans called it white man's foot.
Wow, that's amazing. And serendipity because I actually have plantain herb in my tea today. So there you go.
Wow.
So I guess from there, how did you end up being pulled to start your not for profit and, look at really giving back to the nature that was helping serve you as a herbalist?
Yeah, so most people think of when we talk about like extinction, we think about animals going extinct. We don't really often think about plants going extinct, but it is a really big issue globally that is not receiving enough attention. And it was something that I was aware of, that there were plants that we use medicinally, that we were taught in school to be cautious about our use with them because they were endangered. And as I started my herbal products company, I realized that a few of those herbs that were my favorite herbs were endangered herbs, particularly one of them being golden seal. And golden seal is used in one of my topical remedies. And it's one of my favorite remedies, and it's so highly effective. And if I took that herb out of the preparation, it wouldn't work anymore. And I realized that I was using an endangered herb that was at risk for extinction here in the US. And I love to go on forest hikes in my local preserve. And as I walk around, I notice there's not a single one of these native species in my local forest. And so I really wanted to have a way to plant and to give back to nature what I was taking from it. And so I started contacting our local park districts and land conservancy agencies, and nobody would give me the time of day. And I realized like I needed to kind of become a little bit more serious about it so that I appeared in a professional light. So I built a website, filed for my nonprofit status, and set up everything so that I could look legitimate in the eyes of these people. And it worked because I started hearing back. And before I knew it, I had more land to plant on than I had plants for. And so it just kind of snowballed into this thing where I had to start finding more people to help out. And we started working with the National Honor Society and the local Boy Scout troop to help us plant. And last year was our first year as an organization, and we planted over 18,000 native medicinal seeds in our local forest. And then we did 362 plants, which doesn't sound as amazing as 18,000 seeds, but you have to remember that 362 plants take a couple of years in a greenhouse to grow to a viable state that they can be planted out in the wild. And it takes a lot more work to put a plant in the ground than it does a seed.
Yeah.
So we're working on having an even bigger year in the next year. We have 1,200 plants in our greenhouse that we are hoping to have ready to go out this next fall. And so we're gearing up to just kind of continue our mission and to try and cover the entire state. So we're really located in the southeastern portion of our state. And we're working on connections with Northern Michigan conservation agencies. So we can start at the top and start on the bottom and then slowly move our way into the middle.
Love that. And it's, oh, so much there I've got goosebumps about. So, the first thing that I want to give you kudos for is I love that you found a bridge to make these organizations listen to you, because it was almost like, hey, you're not going to listen to me as a person, but what if I come in a not for profit? Then you're going to actually have some weight, right? And then, and I understand because I've been on a similar journey, so I get where you're coming from. But then also the work you're doing, Bonnie, amazing. Like that you are replanting all these endangered species and to really bring the medicine back to the land.
Yeah, and the fun part about it too is like as we started planting more things and we really needed help, and so we started working with the local high schoolers and their National Honor Society and the Boy Scout troop. And so here are these kids who knew nothing about herbal medicine or that it was even a thing. Like to them, medicine is you go to your doctors, you get a shot, you take a pill. That's medicine. So I got to teach these kids about things that they would never otherwise have learned about. And then not only are they learning about something, which is only one level of learning, they're actually physically doing, because they got to handle the plants, they got to handle the seeds, and they got to put them in the ground. And then they get to come back this spring and help us to check on them and monitor them. So it's that whole real world learning for the kids. That's an experience that they would have never gotten otherwise.
And it's so amazing when you connect kids back to nature and you see that wonder and that curiosity that sparks that's just been dormant in their DNA, right? Because I was taking kids out into nature for camps, running, and just how in awe they are. And we could happily stare at an ant on a plant for like 20 minutes, quite easily. And, if we can foster that in the children and the next generations, how much better is the outlook for Earth?
Yeah, every single one of the kids at the end of our project said that that was the best conservation project that they had ever done. They all absolutely loved it. And it spawned other adventures. So we have a friend who has a compost farm in downtown Detroit. And they had had a long relationship with the mounted horse police, where they were using the manure from the horses, and they were growing apples that they would feed the horses. And they had this whole just full round circle ecological system going on there. And so with the Boy Scouts troop, they were doing a project where they had to learn about soil and composting. And so we took these kids down to Detroit and they got to like see the poop and see the whole process of how their food was made. And we literally took them from the beginning of their food, where it's poop, and all the way to the end where they got to go see the farm where the food was grown. And to them, it was just the most incredible thing. And I was getting emails from parents afterwards, like, my son came home telling me about how he got to play with poop. And it was fantastic. I was like, yeah, we did. We played with poop because that's how you make your soil. And he got to learn about where his food comes from. And then he got to pick his food. And it was strawberry season at the time. So they got to pick these fresh strawberries.
So good.
And it was just, it was an incredible experience because you can see the kids who are these city kids. There's no connection to where their food comes from in our local area, seeing not only a farm but an urban farm that's right in the middle of a city, and somebody who's doing it well and thriving and having that full circle perspective of everything. They're not just bringing in compost or soil from another location, they're making it themselves, and they're using the resources that they have available to them locally, which is huge, because that's a totally different perspective than a lot of like farms where we have pesticides and herbicides and outside resources coming onto the farm that are sustaining that farm.
Yeah.
So I love teaching little kids because one, they're way more receptive than adults are. And
Agreed.
they ask
Agreed.
they ask the most inquisitive, cool questions. Adults are going to try and question and debate something based upon their prior experience and knowledge. But a little kid is going to be so fascinated, and they're going to look at that little pile of dirt and be like, well, what's this little speck of white in here? Or why is this or why is that? And they're looking at those like intricate things. And I'm like, well, that's actually really important. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of sand in that soil because that helps to aerate it so that it can drain. So yeah, their kids are beautiful, and that's the future of our world right there. Forget teaching older people and just teach the kids to love the dirt.
Well, then the kids become your teachers too, because then they teach other people around them, and I feel that that's such an important thing, and especially what you said with the compost, because a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to start a compost in your own backyard, and it doesn't have to be like this stinky big thing. Like, you just can whack some pallets together. Well, that's what we did. We whacked some pallets together and started throwing some things in it, and then we have chickens, so then we have the benefit of the chicken manure going in there too, and then the chickens actually jump in there and aerate it for us. It's been a delightful cycle, and then we throw some worms in. But, just to have that compost heap or be able to grow something for yourself, and it doesn't matter how small your space is, there's still a chance that you can grow your own food.
Absolutely. You can just have a little indoor unit too if you don't have a lot of space. And especially if you have kids in your house, you guys can all take that journey together. Even if you as an adult don't know how to grow your food or do that stuff, that experience of doing it with your children is beautiful. So we just started our indoor seeds. We have a very short growing season where I live. So if we want to grow things like watermelon and cabbages, we have to start our seeds indoors, and it's a beautiful activity because it's freezing cold outside and the little ones just want to be outside and play. So I brought a bucket of dirt inside our living room and we just like we had dirt and we had plant trays and we were filling our plant trays with dirt, and they got to put all their little seeds and decide what it was that they wanted to grow for the year, which I think is really important too, is when the kids are involved in that process of choosing what they eat and what they grow, they'll start to eat food that otherwise they wouldn't want to. So, like, one of the things that my son likes to eat is purple cabbage. And we've never really grown purple cabbage because, again, it has an extended growing season. And I've always had trouble with the earwigs, so it destroys my cabbage because we've got a little bit more water in our garden area. And so I was like, you know what? He wants to grow it. I'm just going to let him grow it because he's so excited about wanting to grow this food that he likes to eat. And then from there, we branch out to other varieties. And so parents who are having trouble getting their kids to eat their vegetables, grow those vegetables. And all of a sudden, broccoli is little miniature trees that your kids want to eat instead of a green, scary vegetable on their plate.
And I guess too, this is what a lot of people don't talk about, is that when you pick the food fresh like that, straight out of your garden, it tastes so much better. It's got so much more nutrients. It's so much better for you. And the kids tend to want to eat it straight off the vine. Like our snow peas, or not our snow peas, but our peas don't even make it inside. They just get in straight off the vine. And then, and then we're like, okay, we have nothing else to eat, but that's fine. We had our afternoon snack of peas. But, there's that mismatch. People don't realize that when you're buying the fruit from the supermarket, that it's probably like at least a month old before you even consumed it. And then it's probably been frozen and everything else, because we have to have that, constant availability rather than flowing with the cycles. And you can tell when the apples have been frozen and you're like, this doesn't make sense. But the difference between picking it off your own tree and knowing you've put that energy in with your family to grow that, it's such a rewarding feeling.
It really is. Ours' favorite is the green beans, and they never make it in the house because we do. We spend all summer outside, and the green beans and the cucumbers are eaten straight off the vines by the little ones. And during the winter time, sometimes I'll buy green beans at the grocery store. The kids won't touch them. Yeah. They won't eat them. And my eldest, when she was little, actually, she was like maybe 3 years old, and I cooked one of her favorite vegetables. I think it was yellow squash from outside. I brought it in the house and I cooked it and I served it to her for dinner. And I said, eat it. It's yellow squash. And she said to me, no, mommy, you ruined it. And I'm a really good cook, so it's not like the food tasted bad. It was just simply that I had cooked her food. And most people, if you think about biting into a yellow squash like an apple, you're like, no, that's supposed to be cooked. But to her, the yellow squash is something she picked off the vine and she ate like an apple. Yeah. And me cooking it ruined it.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the difference of taste as well. Like it's just, and even what you were saying when you took those kids and they picked the strawberries fresh, if anyone's never had a strawberry straight off the plant, like it's It tastes like the sun has kissed it. That's the only way I can describe it, because it's just so full of nutrients and liveliness. And you're like, oh my goodness, why do I even bother with the store bought ones?
Yeah, and that's the truth about the strawberries, because when it transitions into when all our strawberries from our plants are gone for the year and we do buy store-bought strawberries, the kids don't really tend to eat them. As it gets deep into winter, they're like, I want my strawberries back, and they will eat them. But in the beginning, they're just like, this isn't the same. And my 2-year-old is funny. This whole summer, we couldn't get any red strawberries because he would eat them when they were green. And I
Oh,
couldn't understand, but he swore that the green ones were tasty. And he would eat every single one of the strawberries before it ever turned red.
Oh dear. That would solve a lot of issues like fighting off the slug's butt, right? So we ended up putting a copper pipe in with our strawberries, like doing that electrolysis thing, and they just thrived, and a lot of the pests actually declined like immensely, and that was all we did. We just put a copper pipe in there. So there's a lot of this old technology and this old knowledge, starting to come forward, and I feel that's where you're about too, Bonnie, because herbalism is old knowledge. It's just kind of been suppressed until now.
Yeah. So just transition a little bit to herbal medicine. I think that it's really important that people start to learn how to add some of those things to their garden. So those of us who are already growing our food and have a garden, there's some plants that you can easily implement into your garden to start having your own medicine outside. And one of the things that I love about, so we have our house, and then we have it in the city, and then we have land separate elsewhere where we have our chickens and our larger gardens.
Beautiful.
But in our city yard, it's kind of small, but I've really curated it so that it looks like a beautiful flower garden, and we get passerbys all the time. In fact, everybody in the city knows our house. We grow sunflowers, and our sunflowers on average are about, 15 to 18 foot tall. And so you're
Wow.
talking about like a really urban environment where people have beautiful small gardens, but nobody's growing 18-foot tall sunflowers. And so we have a corner house. So the whole 50-foot corner of our front property is lined with sunflowers. And then on the interior, it looks like a beautiful flower garden, but all of the flowers are medicinal and have a medicinal use. And so I love, like, when the neighbor kids come by and these little girls go through my garden, and I'm like, well, you can eat that flower. And if you get sick, you can make a tea out of this flower, and it can help you with your fever and make your cold go away. And so that's one of the most exciting things. So we think about like our pollinators and having these pollinator gardens, and they're really fantastic, but you can take that pollinator garden to a whole nother level and bring in some of the medicinal plants into your garden. And then suddenly you have an edible forest garden in your small urban area, but it's also medicine for a large number of ailments that you can have in a very small little space. You can grow a good portion of your medicinal needs.
I so agree with that. And for us, because we have a bit more land, we plant a barrage, not realizing how much that will take over things. But the kids is like, we can eat the flowers. It's like, yeah, you can eat the flowers, and then we have our rosemary, and then we have lavender, and all these things that the bees love, and the pollinators love. But at the same time, they all have these massive medicinal properties, and thyme's another one. I don't think people realize how amazing thyme is, and you just put a little bit of it in whatever you're cooking, and it's packs a punch. But at the same time, it can be really good at moving the heat, and helping with the healing and that sort of thing, and just uncovering those things that you can just add it to your cooking so easily, and all of a sudden you have this whole level of food just by adding a few herbs.
Yeah, that's one of the things when I'm doing herbal consultation for some of my clients, is really encouraging them to include herbs and spices in their cooking. And this is one of the reasons why I love Indian food, because they include so many spices in their food, and particularly something like cardamom. So here in the US, like, metabolic syndrome is a huge issue. A lot of people are overweight, they're pre-diabetic, they're on their way to cardiovascular conditions like atherosclerosis, and it's a huge issue. And so one of my favorite herbs to have them include in their cooking is cardamom, because that's going to benefit that entire system. It's going to help with the issues of insulin resistance. It's going to help with the cardiovascular issues, and it tastes amazing. And there's so many different things you can put cardamom on. Like if you like yogurt or oatmeal, sprinkle some cardamom on top of your yogurt and your oatmeal. It tastes really wonderful on both of those. If you're into cooking and baking, include that in anything that you would put cinnamon in. You can add cardamom as well. And cinnamon is another amazing natural healer that all the same said things for cardamom have the same benefits, especially for people who are diabetic, to include a lot of cinnamon in your diet. And so there's simple things like that you don't really have to adjust a lot to take herbal medicine into your life, like the thyme and oregano. These are really powerful, natural, antiviral, antibacterial herbs. And so if you're sick, they're really important, and they're super easy to grow. They kind of grow like a weed.
They do.
And it's beautiful to have just a little herb garden in your window. If you live in an apartment, you can have little window boxes with your thyme and your oregano. And when you're sick, just take some of the little leaves and chew on them, especially if you start to feel that tickle and tingle in the back of your throat, like I woke up with this morning. Just chew on a little bit of oregano. It's a very, very powerful herb. And so those are the things that I think we need that little playbook of like, how do I introduce just a few easy things into my life? And it starts with your cooking and your spices.
My favorite for a while was clove, because I had a lot of dental work done and I would just be chewing on the clove buds instead of chewing gum. And the clove actually just pulls the infection out and does this amazing work while you're chewing it that you don't even realize. And yeah, it has this like spicy kick, but at the same time, I like my chais, like the proper herb chais, so I love clove. And, I will throw it in a tea, just especially if I feel like my gums or my teeth are a bit out of whack and just need that kind of purge in there. And it's just such a beautiful, potent herb that just does all this work just by drinking it.
Yeah, clove has so many uses. That's like a cornerstone in our household. And I have 4 kids, so I'm always full of mom herbal advice. But with teething babies, a little bit of clove oil on the teething gum soothes their pain. And the teeth, too. And another one I love for the teeth is a sage. So a tincture of sage as a mouthwash for periodontal disease is really, really powerful to cleaning out those gums and the bacteria. But I mean, I put clove in everything from my cleaning products that I make in my house, because we make all of our cleaning products super, super easy. You can look up all of the range of bacteria that clove kills, and it's astounding. And then you can look at your other like chemical cleaning products, and you'll be like, well, why am I even using this when the clove can do so much? And we talked about thyme. So in my cleaning blend, I add both clove and thyme, and then I add hyssop, because hyssop was this ancient kind of spiritual herb that they used in all of the temples to clean the temples and wash them down to remove the evil spirits, which back in the day, what did they call evil spirits? Viruses and illnesses were not viewed as these entities, they were viewed as evil spirits. And so hyssop is another really wonderful and beautiful for people who like their like hedge bushes to kind of fill in and create a border on the outskirts of their property and have that kind of like visual closure. Hyssop can get into that very big, beautiful, bushy state after a few years of growing it, and then it gives you beautiful purple flowers too. And the purple flowers last for an extended period of time. They don't just bloom and then die off. So it makes a very kind of beautiful hedge for an area. And so those are my 3 that I like to use in my cleaning products. But then the clove is also part of an anti-parasite blend for people who are trying to do parasite treatment. So it's really important that pivotal, like helping with the 3 different stages of the egg growth. So many uses, and somebody once asked me, like, if you could only have 5 herbs, what would your 5 herbs be? And I was like, well, that's a really tough question. And so like I like to think of like multi-use herbs, like what packs the most punch and has a lot of different purposes. And so cloves is definitely one of those that you would want to have in your medicine cabinet because it has so many different purposes that you can use it for.
I love that. So with my Australian twist, our cleaning blend has eucalyptus oil and then it has clove. And I think we also got lemon myrtle in it as well. So, it's just funny just having that reflection from the other side of the globe where we're surrounded by eucalypts. We were talking about this before we started recording. But yeah, I find that really hard too because I use a lot of essential oils and people are like, just take 5. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. I've got like peppermint and lavender because peppermint I find is a really nice all rounder and lavender as well. But then, I'm like, I don't know what else to take in there because there's so many other ones that I like. And it's the same with herbs, right? You're like, well, if I can only take a few, I don't know what to take.
I get asked on podcasts all the time that what is the one herb that you would recommend to people for XYZ? Often because I have a company that makes topicals for pain management. What is the one herb that you would recommend for pain management? That's a really hard question to answer. Even if like I rack my brain and I think of things like turmeric, which is really good for calming inflammation, but you need that black pepper to activate it. So there's no, and I explained this recently, there's no single herb. Like herbs by themselves are very powerful, but herbs in combination with other herbs are even more powerful because they help to support each other. And it's the same with people. If you're all alone and you're trying to do something, it's a lot of work and it's very hard to make a big difference. But if you have a few friends that are helping you out, you guys can really get a lot done. And so herbs are the same. They need other companion plants to kind of help support them in their job. So in some of my topicals I make, people, if you read enough of my ingredients, you'll notice that there are a couple herbs that always kind of appear together. So like juniper and cypress. Those two always go together. They support each other. They have similar actions, and where the other one is weak, the other one is strong. And so nothing can be taken by itself in nature or in our human lives and existence. And so you can even think about this. People talk about companion planting in the garden,
Yes.
Like marigolds fighting off pests. And then the same is true with what we eat because certain foods help support. So like strawberries and spinach, and why do you drink orange juice with eggs? We're talking about helping the body to absorb the nutrition. So the body needs certain things to help, say, absorb vitamin D. And then there's also antagonists in the body. So you're not supposed to take certain supplements together. And that's because they compete within the body. Yeah. And so the same is true with herbal medicine. And that's where people can sometimes say, oh yeah, I took this herb and it didn't work. Yeah. Or I don't find it to be that effective. Well, did you consult with a really well-trained herbalist who knew how to properly blend a set of herbs together for you? Because you can't just take one herb and expect it to work. So a really popular one being like black cohosh, which is used for women who are going through menopause. And just because it works for one person doesn't mean it works for everybody else. And so a lot of my herbal training is in traditional Chinese medicine. And in traditional Chinese medicine, we don't look at diseases. In fact, they don't even recognize diseases. We look at a person because somebody can come into my office and they can have the same exact diagnosis, but their pathology of how they got to that diagnosis is going to be completely different. One person could have some heat signs that are affecting the body, and the other person could have dampness that is affecting the body. And that those two different conditions manifested into the same illness. So the same herb isn't going to work for the same person because that heat person is going to need cooling and calming herbs. And that person with dampness is going to need to be dried out and dried out gently because we, of course, don't want to go to the other extreme where somebody becomes too dry. And so that's the other issue with just randomly taking herbs is you can take something that is for a certain set of conditions and you can go from being overly damp to overly dry really easily. So when somebody has a damp condition, we give them herbs that are for drying. But we also give them some slightly moist herbs at the same time in that formula. So it would be a ratio of like 2 to 1, 2 herbs that are dry, 1 herb that is moist, because we want to keep that balance. We don't want to dry them out so much that then they become in pain because they're dry. So herbs are all about balance and formulation and knowing which ones work together and which ones don't. So those of you who are listening and have tried herbal medicine and didn't think that it would work, I encourage you to kind of consider talking to somebody who knows how to blend herbs together really well.
Yeah, and I love what you said too. It really depends on the person. Like I'm naturally cold, I'm the one with the cold feet and the poor circulation and I need the warming herbs. Whereas my husband is the furnace. It's really nice because it's that yin and yang when we go to bed. But it's like he gets my cold feet and then it's exchange. But he doesn't do as well with the hot herbs because he's already hot, so he needs more of those cooling herbs, and he was playing around with turmeric, cayenne pepper and ginger. And then he went and saw someone and was testing him, like using muscle testing and things to get the feedback. And she's like, oh no, they're way too hot for you. And I'm like, I was saying that, so it's nice when you get that feedback and you take in the whole person. And that's such an important thing to do. So thank you for doing that, Bonnie. Kudos to you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to move away from this idea of a diagnosis or a set of conditions and really start to look at the person. And this is one of my favorite stories to tell. I had a client that I had been seeing for some time, and we had a really good relationship and we were making a lot of headway. They had a lot of serious chronic conditions. I mean, we're talking about this person had breast cancer, had part of their thyroid removed, was diabetic, had atherosclerosis. We had a long list of some serious chronic conditions. And we had been working together for a long time. Their wish was to come off of pharmaceuticals. And I always love it because I like to work really closely with people's doctors. People's doctors just like, who is this lady? And it takes time to form that relationship before a doctor will start to see like, oh, well, this person's actually really helping out my patient. Maybe I should kind of give them the time of day. So I've been working with this lady for a long time and she was doing very well, but I always felt like we were kind of missing the mark a little bit. And after some time of working together, it finally came out that this person, the really root cause was grief and guilt. Their child had committed suicide and they felt responsible for it. And that really kind of hit home for me because that's what I'm always looking for is like the root cause of illness often is an emotional one. And if you don't pinpoint that emotional root cause, you may make some headway in helping the person, but you're never going to heal them unless you can heal them from deep within as what's really going on with them. And so that was an important lesson for me as an herbalist, that I'm not just here prescribing herbs.
Yeah.
And then I'm also here to help people unwind some of those inner emotional issues that are causing the root cause of illness.
Definitely. And that's something I'm really passionate about too, Bonnie, because a lot of people don't realize that when you suppress emotions and you push them down, that it actually does manifest as dis-ease, in the body. Yes. And if you don't feel it, you're not going to heal it as well. So it's great to have the supplements and to have the herbs to support you, but you still need to be brave and actually go down to that root cause of the emotions all the way down the bottom and let them come out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the most simplest ones is digesting your emotions. And I'm sure it's the same globally, but here in the US, digestive issues rank #1 in people's ailments. And that's because we're not digesting our emotions. We think like we've got to properly chew and digest our food, but our emotions are exactly the same. And I love to explain it this way. So everybody thinks that the brain is that central part of the body that's commanding the entire body, but it's actually not. Your stomach is a brain in and of itself, and it is the only organ in the body that can tell the brain what to do, but the brain cannot tell the stomach what to do. And it's a very interesting concept to sit back and think and research a little bit more. that the brain cannot control the stomach, but the stomach can control the brain. And it puts it into perspective that our stomach is actually like a true brain in and of itself, and that those emotions have to be digested and processed. We think about mental health in terms of just our brain, but science has proven that schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and a number of other mental disorders start in the gut. And they have found that if they heal the gut, they heal the brain. And that's because we have yet to admit out in the real world in science that the true brain of the body is the stomach. And so we have to digest and process those emotions and move them through our system, or they can manifest as chronic diarrhea or constipation or GERD or IBS or any of those other digestive complaints. All really start with emotions that we have not properly processed.
100%, definitely. And as we come to our time finishing together, Bonnie, because I feel like we could talk about so many topics, but I asked my guests if there was something they could heal in the world, what would it be?
Oh, that's one of those questions of pick one herb. If there's something that I could heal in the world, it would be people's heart connections. The heart is not just a pump moving blood through your body. It is a feeling organ. And with practice and meditation, one can learn to control the heart on different planes and different levels. And if us humans could all learn to heal our hearts and to connect with each other through our heart center, it would change the globe. The way we interact, the way we treat each other, the way we live our lives, if we could all just heal the heart.
Oh, goosebumps. 100%. I so agree with that as well, Bonnie. And how can people find you if they want to connect with you or they want to learn more about your not-for-profit? Where can they go?
So the easiest place would be to go to like my main website, that when you go to it, you just see images of all my other websites. So that would be bonniedarcangelo.com. Make it easy for people. So that's BonnieDarcangelo.com. And you will find a link to every single one of the other things that I'm working on there.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well, because if anyone's driving and trying to write that down, please don't. So, and it was been such a delight, Bonnie, and thank you so much for being on the show and giving up your time to be here and share your knowledge.
Thank you very much for having me. It was wonderful.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.